Welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I'm your host, Papa Nick Lewis, and today we're talking about Kiss. Oh, I love Kiss. When I was in high school, I was a huge Kiss fan. Um, I first became aware of Kiss when they released Alive in 1975. They'd been recording for a couple of years up to this point, touring and all of that. But I grew up in rural eastern Oklahoma. We did not have a burgeoning music scene. The only way that I would be aware of new music is if the music was popular enough to be featured on the local top 40 radio station, or if the artist or song was popular enough to be featured on broadcast TV, American Bandstand, The Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, starting in the later 70s. So I wasn't aware of Kiss until Rock and Roll All Night became a top 40 single. And I listened to the album and I loved the album. It was first time I heard Alive. I was hooked. I loved this music, loved everything about it, and I loved the theatricality of the band, the pyrotechnics and the costumes and the makeup and I loved all of that stuff, and I really liked the music an awful lot. The music spoke to me. It struck a chord in me. So throughout the bulk of my junior high and high school years, I was a huge Kiss fan. I mean, posters on the wall and collecting pictures from magazines, the whole 9 yards. And I loved Kiss. I couldn't have explained at the time why I liked them. I now know why I like them as much as I do. I've always been a fan of hard rock and of power pop. Van Halen and the Knack. All right, this is the music that I love. And Kiss straddled that line. They had a lot of really good hard rock songs, and they had a lot of really good power pop songs. When they started reinventing themselves in the mid '80s, they realized that they had lost the bulk of their audience, and so they had to rejuvenate, and they did that by stripping off the makeup, which, okay, I kind of like the makeup, but oh yeah, I get it. But they also did it by changing their music, and the music shifted, and instead of straddling the line between hard rock and power pop, they are now straddling the line between hard rock and metal. And I've got nothing against metal, but it's not my preferred musical style. So when they started moving in that direction, okay, I figure now's a good time for us to part as friends, and we can just go on our merry way and be happy that we'll always have rock and roll all night. So Animalize was the last album that I was aware of, and I did not think much of it, and so I am blissfully unaware of the music that Kiss recorded in the late '80s and throughout the '90s, and I'm okay with that. I don't feel a particular need to go and listen to Hot in the Shade or Asylum to make sure that everything that I've heard about them is accurate, because frankly I don't care. I'm comfortable limiting myself to the original makeup years. So today we're going to be ranking the albums of the original makeup years. We're talking 1974 to 1982, from Kiss to Creatures of the Night. We are going to include the solo albums because while you can make an argument that they aren't Kiss albums, they are, Peter Criss and Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley and Gene Simmons. You can also make an argument that they are Kiss albums because it's Kiss Peter Criss, Kiss Paul Stanley, Kiss. I mean, it's right there on the cover. I mean, come on, folks. More importantly, they were a part of the band's identity in the '70s. So we're going to go ahead and include them. That gives us 14 albums to rank. Now, before I get into this, couple of things up front. First, the subjectivity notice. Um, Aesthetic appreciation is, by definition, a subjective uh, phenomenon. Okay? There is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad music or film or TV or any art. There is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad. There is only things that we like and things that we don't like. So there will be things that I like that you don't like, and there will be things that you like that I don't like, and that's okay. That does not make either one of us right or wrong. It just means that we've got different tastes. If you want to leave a comment below telling me that you disagree with how I've ranked these, that you disagree with the basic criteria that I'm using, that kind of stuff, I'm happy. Go for it. That's a fun conversation to have. If you want to tell me that I'm objectively, provably wrong, then you are happy to go piss up a rope, because there is no such thing as objectively, provably wrong when it comes to the quality of an artwork. We should also talk about the ground rules. We're only talking about original studio albums, so we're not including Alive. We're not including Alive 2, even though Alive 2 has the one studio side that is an EP, not an LP, so we're not counting Alive 2. And I don't do compilations, so we're not doing double platinum or anything like that. We're not doing Killer or anything like that. So we're just talking about the 14 albums between Kiss and Creatures of the Night. Now, I have to be upfront here. This is actually the third time I've tried to make this video. A couple of weeks ago, I had it. I had finished my recording. I had finished my editing. It was all spruced up. It was ready to go. I was ready to post it to YouTube, and I watched it one last time just to make sure that everything was the way I wanted it to be. And I realized that the commentary that I had did not match the ranking that I had. I was just gushing about how beautiful albums were that were hovering around the 4, 5, 6 neighborhood, and I was just heaping shit on these albums that I had 1, 2, and 3. And it's like, wait, these things don't match up. And so I'm wondering to myself, is it my ranking that was off? Is it my commentary that was off? What's the deal? So I went back and I listened to. I had listened to all the albums before I did the first video, but I went back. I listened again. Make sure I'm didn't have a stroke or something, right? So I listened to all the albums again. I went through and I ranked songs and I ranked albums and I ranked artworks. I came up with as many different rubrics as I could for how I was going to judge the quality of these albums. And I did a second version of the video with a ranking system that was slightly tinkered. I did make a few changes to it, but was largely intact, and realized I had the same problem. Got to the end of the second video and was going back and watching it, and yeah, I was still trying to jam those square pegs into those round holes. And I finally realized what the problem was. And the problem was that I was trying to square up the way I see the albums now with the way I saw them at the time. I was trying to give an equal voice to my younger, junior high and high school self that I'm giving to my current, 58-year-old self. And I've come to the conclusion that we're not going to do that. I'm tired of bending over backward to try to accommodate younger me. I'm tired of bending over backward to try to accommodate my sense of what the KISS Army will allow me to do and what they will burn me in effigy for doing. So I've decided I'm fully embracing my power pop fandom, and get ready, because there are a few of these rankings that you are very strongly going to disagree with, and I understand that you're going to disagree with them, But as far as I'm concerned, the whole reason why I'm doing ranking videos is not so that I can agree with everybody else, but rather so that I can add to the discussion by providing a viewpoint that is not as widely available. So, I don't want to irritate people just for the sake of irritating people, but I also am fairly certain that there's got to be a few people out there that agree with me the way I see these albums. So, it's for you folks. Um, so, here are the 14 albums from the original Makeup era. Coming in at number 14, I don't think I'm going to get any pushback on this at all. Every ranking video that I have seen consistently ranks at the bottom of the pile 1978's Peter Criss. And I am no different. Now, I will say I don't think it's a bad album. I actually liked the album. I liked it when it came out. It was the album that I would play for friends who told me that they didn't like Kiss. They didn't like Kiss. And I'd say, okay, well then let's listen to this instead. And I'd play Peter Criss, and they'd say, ooh, I like that. What's that? And I'd say, well, that's Kiss. And they'd go, no, we don't like Kiss. So it was the gateway, the gateway album for getting people into the Kiss catalog. I liked the album. I liked it well enough that when Peter left the band for good and recorded his first solo album, Out of Control, I got a copy of that one too. But overall, it's not a particularly strong album, not compared to the others, and definitely not compared to the I want something, I'm judging the quality of something based on how well it straddles that line between hard rock and power pop. Peter Criss does not straddle that line. There are some good songs on there. I'm particularly fond of Easy Thing and Kiss the Girl Goodbye. But for the most part, it's an okay album. It's competently recorded, but nothing about it's going to set your world on fire or anything. Now, from here on, we're talking good albums. When I'm thinking of these albums, I don't think in terms of fine gradations. I don't think in terms of slot by slot rankings. I think in terms of grades. I spent the bulk of my adult life as a teacher, so I tend to grade things. I would give Peter Criss a good solid C to C plus. It's a decent album. It's not going to set the world on fire, but it's a decent album. From here on out, we've got B's and A's. Right? There no C's. So everything is good or superlative from here on out. So when I rank some of these albums down here, just keep in mind, I still think they're good albums. Coming in at number 13. You're going to look at me and you're going to say, there's no way this album deserves to be at number 13. And I will agree with you. This album does not deserve to be at number 13. The problem with this album is that I spent a summer, my brother and I were going overseas to spend the summer with our parents. And as we were getting ready to go, I'm talking like day before we were leaving, we're packing our bags, we're getting ready to go. My brother became fixated with the idea that anything that we had of value could be just randomly seized by customs. He was really afraid of customs, and I don't know why. I don't know what the deal was, but he was my older brother, so I had to live with his arbitrary decisions. And he decided that we would only take cassettes with us if we had multiple copies of the cassette, which meant that we ended up taking, I want to say we took 2 or 3 albums with us. And those were the things that we listened to all summer. And one of those that we took was 1977's Love Gun. And I listened to Love Gun that summer oh so many times. I burned out on Love Gun. It was years before I could listen to it again. By the end of that summer, if you had even so much as suggested that you wanted to even think about listening to Love Gun, I would have taken an axe to your stereo. I just, by the end of that summer, I fucking despised Love Gun. And I'm still dealing with that. This was 40 years ago, 40 plus years ago, and I'm still wrestling with it. Jeez Louise. I've got to the point where I can listen to the album now. There for a while, I for the longest time, I couldn't even listen. I could get maybe 3 songs in, and then it's like, flashbacks, right? I can listen to the whole album now. It's just, while I liked the album a lot at the time, I mean, obviously I liked the album at the time because my brother and I both must have liked it because we each managed to get a copy of it independent of the other because we had 2 copies of it. So obviously, if we've got 2 copies of the album, it's an album that I liked. But I look back at it now, and part of me is, or the biggest part of me is flashbacks to the Summer of Hell. But the rest of me is looking at it and thinking, yeah, the songs just aren't all that great. I mean, I Stole Your Love is a decent song. I do kind of like Almost Human, and I do like Shock Me. Shock Me is one of Ace's better songs. But Christine 16, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. Love Gun, no. Number 13. Number 12. Number 12, again, I don't think I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this. I think most Kiss fans are going to put this one towards the bottom. And that's 1979's Dynasty. Now, I'm ranking Dynasty pretty low here. I still think it's a decent, I'm looking at my grades over here, and I've given it a good solid B-. So, I mean, decent album. The problem is not that it's a pop album, or even worse, a disco album. Because, well, no, it's not a disco album. You need more than a tempo that has a certain number of beats per minute to qualify as disco. And, no. I Was Made for Loving You has a disco beat, yes, but it is not a disco song. And that in and of itself is not really criticism anyway, because there's a lot of good disco. Yeah, a lot of disco is crap, but that's one of those rules of life. 2/3 of anything is crap. So yeah, 2/3 of disco was crap, but 1/3 of it was pretty decent. So, I'm not slotting Dynasty at number 12 because it's a poppy disco album. I'm slotting it at number 12. Sliding it? I'm slotting it at number 12 because it's just not a particularly good poppy disco album. There are a couple of songs that I really, really like. I think Sure Know Something is one of the, oh man, that's a top 10 contender for all of Kiss songs. I love Sure Know Something. I think it's a brilliant song. And I really like Charisma. That's one of Gene's better songs. Dirty Livin'? Oh, man. And Ace's songs. Oh, Hard Times. Oh, Save Your Life. Oh. Ace. I got a complicated relationship with Ace because on the one hand, I find him immensely entertaining. I think he's a very underrated guitarist, and musically, I really like him. I like his songs musically. His lyrics tend to suck, and that's the problem I've got with, Hard Times and Save Your Love. They're just. If we just listen to the music, they're cool. So I'm not a big fan of Dynasty. B-. So it's not like I hate it or anything. It's just. Coming in at number 11. Okay, this one I'm going to get pushback on. Oh my God, are y'all going to push back on this? If I could travel back in time and talk to myself, 6 months ago, the 6 month ago me would have said, "What the hell are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" Jesus. Before I started thinking about before I started thinking about doing a video ranking these albums, I I just kind of, sorted them in my head. Okay, well, yeah, this one will probably go here, and this one will go there, and this one will go here, and this one will go there. And I had this album as a top five album, just because when it first came out, I thought it was a really great album, and my memory is that it's a really great album. And then I listened to all the albums again, and I realized, yeah, it's not really great. I mean, in my memory, it is really great. When I listened to it at the time when it first came out, I really, really liked it. It has not aged well for me, though. And I think it is probably mostly because I was just talking about how I started losing the thread of Kiss when they started shifting from the power pop hard rock blend to the hard rock metal blend, and that shift began with 1982's Creatures of the Night. When Creatures of the Night first came out, I thought it was fantastic. I loved that album. I thought it was one of the best albums they had ever done. Definitely the best album they had done in years. I loved the production of it. Oh man, Michael James Jackson did a heck of a job producing that record. And this, if there is a consistent problem that Kiss has, it's finding somebody who can produce their records without tripping over their own dick, right? So Michael James Jackson did that. And this album it's one of the better sounding albums in the Kiss catalog. I love the way the album sounds. And there are some songs on it that I really, really like even to this day. I like the title track. I like Saint and Sinner. I think that, again, one of Gene's better songs. I Love It Loud. I think that's a good rock anthem. There are a couple songs that are my note down here is yeesh. Keep Me Coming is the one that gets the yeesh, because Lord, is that a shitburger of a song. So there are a couple of songs like that I just like. Yeah, I can't do that. I can't handle a steady diet of War Machine. But it's a good solid B album. I like it. I just don't like it as much as the stuff that's above it on the list. Number 10. Okay, hear me out. Number 10 is 1978's Ace Frehley. And, oh man, I could feel that. Ooh, there was a disturbance in the force. Here's the thing about Ace Frehley. I was talking earlier, when I was talking about Dynasty, about how much I like Ace as a musician. I like him as a showman. I like him as a person. I love listening to him in interviews. Man, the guy has got his head screwed on. There's absolutely no bullshit about him at all, which I just love. I think the world of Ace Frehley. And musically, I really like his songs. Lyrically, not so much. And so it's always when I'm looking at it, or when I'm listening to an Ace Frehley song, the decision boils down. When I'm thinking whether it's a good song or not, it's going to come down to how well the music makes up for the deficiencies in the lyrics, because that's consistently the reaction I have to Ace's music. Now, I will also say, so we've got that's working against us on this album. I will also say, when these albums came out, we weren't sure, we being Kiss fans of the day, we weren't sure really how to take these things, because on the one hand, we're afraid that maybe this means they're breaking up. Ooh, sad face. But on the other hand, ooh, we got 4 albums this year. Ooh, happy face. And most of us knew, okay, I was fairly confident I knew what Paul's was going to sound like. It was going to sound like the Paul songs on a Kiss album. And I was fairly confident I knew what Gene's was going to sound like. It was going to sound like the Gene songs on a Kiss album. And I was less certain, but still fairly certain, what Peter's was going to sound like, because I figured Peter would do what he had done with the group, which was he was going to find some people who could write him some good songs like Hard Luck Woman, and he would, in Black Diamond, and he would sing those, and maybe have one ballad on there that he could have a moderate hit with. Peter, as it turned out, was the you know shot out of left field. Nobody saw Peter's album coming. Man, the weirdness trophy definitely went to Peter in a runaway. But Ace was the wild card. We weren't. I wasn't sure what Ace's was going to sound like. At this point, he had only sung two songs. He did "Rocket Ride" off of Live 2 and "Shock Me" off of Love Gun, and that was it. I mean, as yeah, he had written songs. He had written "Cold Gin" and "Parasite" and a few others, but I still wasn't sure what an album of Ace would sound like. And so I get the album, or the cassette. I pop the cassette in, I start the playing, and I start the playing. Wow, that was weird. I pop the cassette in, and I start playing it, and the first song, "Rip It Out." Man, it, I thought that was wonderful. Oh, that song floored me. That was a great song. I thought, all right, here we go. This is gonna kick some serious ass. And then it just kind of was a bunch of different songs that all kind of sounded the same to me. Now, I don't mean they all sounded the same. They sound different, but they've all got that same Ace problem. "Rip It Out" was the only one that I thought, okay, that's a decent song. The rest of them are okay. There's some decent music in here, and then there's I've got the extra problem that, I mean, I've listened to this album, hundreds of times over the course of my life, and I could not tell you if you just played me a snippet of one of the songs other than "Rip It Out." "Rip It Out" I'm going to recognize, and "New York Groove," that one doesn't count. "Fractured Mirror," that one doesn't count. Any of the other songs, you play me a snippet from one of the verses, and there's $5 says I won't be able to tell you what song it is, unless the snippet is from the chorus, right? Okay, well, he's saying "Snowblind," so it's going to be from "Snowblind," right? It's going to be that kind of thing. Otherwise, I'm not going to know which song it is. That's because these songs, they hit and they just bounce right off. None of them stay. None of them launch. None of them have insinuated themselves into my taste for music. I'm not trying to be critical of Ace Frehley, the album, but I'm happy. I'm really happy with "Rip It Out," and the rest of it, I'm happy to just not listen to that often. So I give it a good solid B. I think of the solo albums, it was the best produced. It sounds the best. But it's a B. Coming in at number 9. Now, if we say right up front that this is going to be a power pop / hard rock fans guide or ranking of the albums of Kiss, I think most people are probably going to think that this album is going to be much higher than it actually is, because it's very much a power poppy album. It's if it's got a song on it that's longer than about 2.25 minutes, I'll be surprised. It's just chock full of guitar riffs and melodic hooks and guitar driven up tempo songs. The vocal harmonies in the choruses that distinguish them from the verses. I mean, any quality you can think of that makes a song a power pop song, and this album is just hip deep in it. So it is a very good example of a power pop album. It's just not a particularly good power pop album. I mean, it's a good example in the sense that it checks all the items off the checklist, but the quality of the songs is not that great. And that is, of course, 1975's "Dressed to Kill." In my grading system, I give "Dressed to Kill" a good solid B+. because it is a good power pop album. And we do have some good songs on it. We've got Rock and Roll All Night on here. We've got Rock Bottom on here. But we've also got just, I mean, warmed over garbage like Ladies in Waiting and Two Timer. And yeah, that's, yeah. So when it's good, and when it's not, it's not. And the not tends to outweigh the good a little bit, which is why it's a high B as opposed to a low A. My number 8 album, I can say exactly the same thing. If power pop, you probably ought to put it up pretty high. It's got the guitar riffs, it's got the melodic hooks, and it's got some good songs, and it's got some, and some is good and some is not, and it ends up with a good high solid B plus rating, and that is 1976 Rock and Roll Over. Yeah, it's got great songs. It's got Hard Luck Woman, which I adore that song. It's got I Want You, which I think is a really good song. It's got Calling Dr. Love. I like that song a lot. But it's also got garbage like Love 'Em and Leave 'Em and Ladies Room. And just like, I mean, these guys have never been known for anything even close to subtlety. I mean, their idea of subtle is, okay, I'm going to hit you with a 2x4 that doesn't have nails in it. Okay. But even by even by the standards of the rest of their albums, songs like Ladies Room and Ladies in Waiting are just unforgivably blunt. I mean, they aren't quite as bad as the, I want to stick my log in your fireplace nonsense that they got into in later years, but it's not too far off. So yeah, Rock and Roll Over at 8, Dressed to Kill at 9. When I was younger, I would have put both of these much higher because I was much more forgiving, and I didn't expect very much at all in the way of subtlety or wit or grace in my lyrics. But my tastes have matured a little bit. I want to see wit and grace in my lyrics, and so Rock and Roll Over and Dressed to Kill, yeah, no, 8 and 9. Okay. From here on, we are in solid A territory. So all of these albums have A's or A pluses. My top 3 are all A pluses. So for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, for the next 4 albums, we got good solid A's. You could suggest that would mean that we could take these 4 albums and put them in any order. And I don't know that I really would be able to put them in any order. I think they actually do belong in this order. But the differences between them are very, very slight in terms of how much affection I personally have for the album. And like I said, they're all good solid A albums. Coming in at number 7, I think one of the interesting things about this, every time I have ranked these albums, every time I've weighted it, trying to use different things, trying to come up with a system that works the best, that makes the most sense, this album has consistently been at number 7. Every time I have shuffled this deck, no matter how I shuffle it, number 7 is 1981's Music from the Elder, which, okay, maybe I can take that as a sign. I don't know. I will say I really like this album. I really liked it when it came out, and I really like it today. I enjoy listening to it. There are no bad songs on here. One of the things we're going to see as we get up through here is very few songs that I would point at and say, yeah, that's not a very good song, unless it's an album that has something that is so great on the other side that it can handle having a weak spot here. And Music from the Elder doesn't have that weak spot. This is just a good, solid album. A lot of fans criticize Music from the Elder. It's Kiss. It's a concept album. Kiss shouldn't be doing concept albums, and I've never understood that criticism. I've always thought that they should have done a buttload of concept albums. Are you kidding me? If ever there was a band that was just tailor made for concept albums, it's Kiss, for crying out loud. Why they didn't, follow Alice Cooper down the, Goes to Hell and From the Inside path, I will never figure out, because, man, it's like they were tailor made for that kind of theatrical experience. But, they, they limited themselves to the one. But I don't have a problem with it because it's a concept album. I have a problem with it because, as concepts go, it's fairly weak. We've got the Chosen One, who is going to lead us all in the battle against ultimate evil, and boy, I sure hope he wins. Yeah, that is a well-trod path. If you're going to tell that story, you're going to need to tell it with something that is new, some twist to it, or something. And they didn't do that. In fact, not only is it a relatively weak concept in terms of being a little on the overdone side, it's also a really hollow concept because I need help connecting some of these dots. I've got the basic gist of it, but I don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand, for example, who the hell Mr. Blackwell is. Y'all got to work with me here. if you're gonna give us something like this, give us the whole thing. So if I judge it according to the effectiveness of the concept and how well the concept is followed through, that's why this thing keeps landing at number 7. If I judge it just on the quality of the music, it's going to inch up a little bit because I think this is a good album. I like this album. I really like World Without Heroes. I think that is one of Gene's best songs. I think it is the best ballad that you're going to find in the Kiss catalog. A couple others I like. I like Only You. I'm looking at my notes and reminding myself what I was going to say here. It's just, concept needs a little bit of help, or it needs a little bit of fleshing out. If you're not going to put a twist on it, at least finish it. So I would have rather have seen The Elder as opposed to music from The Elder. So, number 7, music from The Elder. Number 6, when I was young, when I was in high school, I would have had this at number 1. This was always my number 1. It was my favorite album. And when I set up my first ranking list for the first video that I did, it was still at number 1. And I was having a real hard time justifying it at number 1 because I was just talking about, the problems it had. And I finally realized, it's because it's not number 1 for me anymore. It's still a great album. I still have it as an A. It's right here in this you cannot go wrong getting this album section of my ranking. It's just not number 1 anymore. And that is 1974's Hotter Than Hell. We've got some really good songs on here. Let Me Go, Rock and Roll, Gotta Choose, Parasite is wonderful. But we also have some issues with the production. Sound on this album is not all that good. And it is, all of these first 3 albums are uneven. You've got some really good and then some not so good, really good and not so good, and it wrestles with that. The problem is, if I look at my other notes over here, we've got some songs that are really, really strong. Gotta Choose, Going Blind, Let Me Go, Rock and Roll. We've got some songs that are really not all that great. All the Way, Mainline, Strange Ways, right? And so it's the quality of the songs is a little too bipolar for my tastes. That being said, if we could go through and re-record it so that it doesn't sound like it's playing underwater, then it's going to go up a couple of notches. Coming in at number 5 is 1978's Paul Stanley. I like Paul Stanley a lot. The album. I like the guy a lot too, as far as I can, as much as I can, given that I'm just a fan of the band. But I really like the album, Paul Stanley. One of the things, and I realize as I say this that I'm being very charitable to Paul when I say this, but one of the things I like about it is that when I was saying earlier that when the albums were coming out, we weren't sure what it was going to sound like. I figured that Paul's would sound like the Paul songs on a Kiss album, and I was right. His Paul's sound sounds the most like a traditional Kiss album, I think, and many people do. It's not like stop the presses. That's not a particularly individual insight on my part. Um, it sounds like a Kiss album, but the songs are better than what you see on a normal Kiss album. Um, it's almost like once Paul realized that he could write just for himself, he didn't have to write for the group. It's like he elevated the quality of what he was putting out. And like I said, I understand that's being very charitable to Paul. And I don't even know if that's what's going on there. But the quality of the songwriting on this album is really, really strong compared to the rest of the albums. And it's really strong compared to the rest of Paul's songs on the albums. So the songs that he had on his solo album are better than most of the songs that he had on the albums on the group albums that are surrounding the solo albums. Tonight You Belong to Me is wonderful. It's All Right is wonderful. Goodbye is, man, is that a perfect album closer or what? Jeez, I love every song on this album. I'm even okay with Hold Me, Touch Me. I don't. It's not one that I'm going to put on an endless loop and listen to all the time because I'm not a big fan of big stringy ballads like that. I don't listen to Beth all that much either, to be perfectly honest. But by the standards of stringy power ballads, I'm okay with it. It's not bad, not great, but it's not bad. But everything else on this album, it's great. My main problem with this album is, again, production. I don't know what it is with these guys and getting hooked up with guys who don't produce very well. But Paul Stanley has a weird, muffled, blurred sound to it, almost like there's a sheet of plywood between me and the speaker. I mean, it's just it's extremely difficult for me to describe, but it's got a fuzzy, blurry sound to it. If we could get in there and tweak that and fix that, it would be damn near a perfect album, I think. And certainly worthy of being put at number 5 here. Number 4, my fourth good solid A album, 1976's Destroyer. I love Destroyer. I loved it when it first came out. I loved the cover of this thing. Man, if that wasn't the image that was Kiss in the 1970s. Oh, man, I love Destroyer. It's a great album. It is one of the better produced albums. I mean, Bob Ezrin knew what he was doing. He knew how to record, and he knew how to get good sounds out of these guys. It's no coincidence that Destroyer and Music from the Elder are both up here in solid A land. Bob Ezrin knows what he's doing. And Destroyer has some of my favorite Kiss songs of all time on it. Shout It Out Loud is one of my top 10 Kiss songs. I love Detroit Rock City and King of the Nighttime World. I love Flamin' Youth. I mean, I love all of these songs. Great Expectations is the standard whipping boy when people are criticizing Destroyer. And I'm even okay with Great Expectations. It doesn't sound like Kiss, but that's okay. It's good. It's a good song. It's a decent song. It's a little bit more grace and subtlety than we're used to with Gene. It's a 2x4, but at least he rounded off the edges so that we're still being bludgeoned, but we don't have the edges, actually cutting our skin. So there is that. the rock and roll party sound thing at the end of the album is goofy, but that's not a negative for the album because it's just a goofy little throwaway thing. Um, so yeah, I've got not much in the way of negatives to say about Destroyer, other than if I'm looking at it from that hard rock, pop, power pop perspective. We've got Shout It Out Loud and then a bunch of other stuff that's close. Oh, Flamin' Youth, Sweet Pain is close. But then we've got things like, God of Thunder, which is a fine song. I'm even okay with the kids screaming their heads off in the background. But, not the poppy stuff that I tend to gravitate towards. So that's why it's at number 4 instead of up in A plus land. Now, my top 3 albums all get A pluses. If my house is on fire and I can only rescue, one album, this is my logic for ranking these top 5. If I have to spend the rest of my life listening to only one album, which album would it be? Okay, well, it would be that one. Okay, now I take it out. Now I have to spend the rest of my life listening to only one album, which one would it be? Okay, well, it's going to be that one. Okay, I take that one out. If I have to spend the rest, that's the approach I took ordering the albums this time. And it feels much better. It feels much more natural than the previous things that I was doing. Coming in at number 3, the archetype for what I'm talking about. Hard rock, power pop, blend the two together is 1974's Kiss. Every song is either hard rock or power pop. Let me get over here to my track listing. Strutter, power pop. Nothing to Lose, power pop. These are not in the order. These are just in the order that they sorted on my sheet here. Cold Gin, hard rock. Let Me Know, power pop. Deuce, hard rock. 100,000 Years, hard rock. Black Diamond, hard rock. Firehouse, power pop. Right? I mean, every song, it's one or the other, right? I love this album. I love that it's got all those classics on it. It's got the Strutters and the Firehouses and the 100,000 Years and Black Diamond and all this sort of stuff. If you're a Kiss fan, you expect to hear the bulk of this album in a concert, and you will hear the bulk of this album in a concert. If we could just get in here and take out Love Theme from Kiss, or at least attach it to a real song, and if we could get rid of Kissin' Time, because that's shit on a shingle. If we can get rid of those two, then we've got a really strong album here. We've got arguably a perfect album if we get rid of those two. So this is really good. I like Kiss. Coming in at number 2, those of you who are strong Kiss fans know what these top 2 are, because you know the discography and you know what's left, and you're thinking to yourself, Jesus Christ, he's got those 2 as his note 1 and 2. Are you kidding me? Keep in mind, I'm liking hard rock blended with power pop. And if I like hard rock blended with power pop, let's call it hard pop. If I like hard pop, then of course I'm going to like 1980s Unmasked. I think Unmasked is a gem of an album. It is very nearly perfect, right? With Kiss, we take 2 songs off, we've got a perfect album. Okay, we take 2 songs off and re-record it with a producer who knows how to record, then we've got a perfect album. Unmasked, we take 1 song out, Naked City, not fond of Naked City. We take a couple, 3 songs and rewrite them to put in some decent lyrics. I'm looking at you, Ace. I like the music of Two Sides of the Coin and Talk to Me. I just think the lyrics are weak. I really like the music of Torpedo Girl. I just think the lyrics are goofy. So if we could put, layer some decent lyrics onto those songs, and then re-record the whole thing with a decent producer, get Vinnie Poncia the hell out of the recording booth, put somebody in there who knows how to filter out that treble hiss for crying out loud, and we would have a perfect album. I love this album. Even with those weaknesses, I love this album. It's got Shandy, which is a great song. It's got Is That You, which is a great song. It's got Tomorrow, which is just a perfect pop song as far as I'm concerned. It's got You're All That I Want, which is one of the best pop songs that Gene ever wrote. It's got some really strong stuff on it, and I really like this album a lot. It's an A-plus album. It's just a couple of notches short of being a perfect album, but it is close. It is closer to perfection, I would argue, than Kiss is, which is why Unmatched belongs at number 2, Kiss belongs at number 3. But there is no doubt as to which album is my number 1 album. It is the one album out of all of these that I would argue is perfect, and that is Gene Simmons from 1978. Say what you will about Gene Simmons, the man. He may well be a braggart, a blowhard, an egomaniac, a narcissist. I don't know if he actually is these things or if he just pretends to be these things for monetary gain. I don't know. I've never met the man. I don't think I ever will meet the man. And frankly, I don't care if I ever do meet the man. One thing I know is that Gene Simmons knows how to record a pop album, because, oh my God, this album is wonderful. It starts out with this soundscape, this melange of voices and instruments that, okay, you're looking at the album cover, right? It's that iconic portrait of Gene. He's got the trickle of blood coming out of his mouth, and the first thing you hear is the ha 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 ha, and it's like, yes, this is it. This is exactly what I was expecting. This is ooh ah, and you get the sounds, and it sounds like angelic singing, the choirs and the demon beneath, and the strings come in, and it's the frenzy builds, and then finally you break into Radioactive, which is just a wonderful little pop song. And then you've got these pop tunes, bing, 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 throughout this first side of the album. And it's just great. And I love it. You've nestled in the middle of that, you've got See You Tonight, which is just a perfect little song. I mean, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant song. And you finish side 1, and that was all just great. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, I hope this is not like a Paul McCartney album where the first side is great and the second side is crap. Please don't let this be a Paul McCartney album. So you turn the album over and you drop your needle and you get to Living in Sin. And Living in Sin is, okay, it's not what I was expecting. It's also a little bit more subtlety and wit than I'm expecting from Gene. And I like the humor of it. That's a fun song. And then we get into this trio. Make sure I'm getting them in the right order. Yeah. We get to this trio of Always Near You, Nowhere to Hide, Man of a Thousand Faces, and Mr. Make-Believe. And the first time I heard this album, that 3-song section just destroyed me. It just, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. And to this day, I listen to those 3 songs and I'm floored. I'm amazed. This is why I love music. I can listen to music and I can experience a universe that is amazingly complex, yet utterly simple, that is accessible and just out of reach, but I can touch it. I mean, it's just the possibilities of music live in these 3 songs. I cannot praise this chunk of the album highly enough. This 3-song portion of this album is why I am a fan of music. Oh, I love this album. And then it closes finally with When You Wish Upon a Star. And most of the ranking videos that I have seen take Gene to task for putting When You Wish Upon the Star When You Wish Upon a Star, excuse me, at the end of the album, and I'm okay with it. Um, I understand why he puts it on there. I mean, everything about Gene's mythology is, anybody can be anything if they're willing to put their minds to it, right? He is the little immigrant kid who didn't know how to speak English, and taught himself how to speak English, and taught himself how to be a rock and roll star. And everything about Gene is, if you can imagine it and if you can believe in it, you can make it happen. And so I completely understand why he's got When You Wish Upon a Star. I was surprised that he did a straight version of it, because, I mean, I'm not an idiot. I'm starting the album, but I'm reading the track listing, and it's like, When You Wish Upon a Star. Is it that When You Wish Upon a Star? And then it starts out, and yes, it's that. It's not only is he singing When You Wish Upon a Star, he is singing a faithful rendition of the original Disney arrangement from Pinocchio. And he's singing it well. I mean, he hits that fucking note at the end, just amazes me every time. So I'm not. There is no reason to criticize him for sticking this thing on that album. I can't find anything wrong with this album. I love this album. It is a perfect album, and it is, out of these 14 albums, hands down my favorite. So that's how I would rank these albums. I'm willing to bet you disagree with most of this, or I should say much of this. Then again, maybe not. I might be underestimating how many people out there really like Unmasked and Gene Simmons. If you are part of the crowd, you think that Unmasked is highly underrated. Maybe you wouldn't put it at number 2, but you certainly think it belongs up towards the top. Drop a comment below. Let me know. Let's start building that community of Unmasked fans. Anyway, that's how I see the albums. And if you want to disagree with me below, that's fine. Leave a comment. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. If you want to tell me that I'm wrong for objective reasons, yeah, no, that shit ain't gonna fly here. We don't do that. In the meantime, if you enjoyed listening to this, if you enjoyed watching this video, then please consider hitting the like button. If you would be interested in watching similar videos, then please consider clicking that subscribe button. And if you click the subscribe button, go ahead and click that notification icon as well, because why would you subscribe to something if you don't want to be notified for when new stuff is released? Comment, all of that stuff. I appreciate it. And in the meantime, I hope the rest of your day is delightful. Bye-bye.